This is not.
Awaken World News with Patrick David Bonin. Good day, beautiful people. Today I'm going to be talking about a storytime event that got cancelled here in Nelson, BC. I went down to the protest that happened after this cancellation, and I did an interview with a guy that I felt would be interesting to share with you. First, I want to read what Nelson Star said a couple days ago about what happened around this event. And excuse me if I don't say certain words. If I say certain words on here, then YouTube just hides me in the algorithms and shadow bans me. So if you hear me leave out certain words, that's the reason why. Online backlash forces Nelson Library to postpone drag storytime. The library says it will now consider how else it can support the ABCDEFG community. The public library is postponing a story time for children following pressure from an online backlash to the event. Chief Librarian Tracy Therian said in a statement that misinformation about Saturday's event spread on social media, and including threats against the library. We recognize the right of individuals to protest. When protests turn to threats and intimidation tactics aimed towards the staff and the storytellers, the safety of the library's patrons and public and staff take precedence. The storytime was set to be hosted by two parents who are storytellers, and according to the library, each have professional experience working with children. The stories were also chosen by the children's librarian. Therianen said in the statement Wednesday that the library will now consider new events in partnership with Nelson's ABCDEFG community. We believe access to information is a fundamental right and strive to make our library space and services welcome for everyone. We are proud to serve and support many at-risk and vulnerable populations, and do not wish to put anyone in a potential danger or trigger situations due to threatening protests. Drag storytime events have previously been held in Nelson. Kootenai Kids hosted one without incident in 2018, but right-wing politicians and groups have begun to rally against the readings for what they claim is the sexualization of young children. The protests began in the United States but have spread to Canada and British Columbia. In December, an all-age drag show held at the Kelowna restaurant ended with an altercation between protesters and a counter-protester. But a story time at Kelowna Library in January was peaceful and attended by hundreds of supporters. While drag shows can include some explicit content, reading for young children hosted by performers are age-appropriate, voluntary, and include parents. Who's making these decisions, whether this is age-appropriate or not, is what we should know. We will be showing a lot of videos of children doing things that I would suggest are not age-appropriate, and that's why we should be keeping an eye on situations like this to see what really is going on.
Children in drag too, and then work the room for some cash. That's the progressive.
Berkeley Valks, who was born and raised in Nelson, was one of the performers set to read at the event. A father himself, Valk said he was disappointed by the library's decision, but respected the need for caution. Safety is the biggest concern for everybody involved. I just want to read stories to kids because I've got two little ones and I thought that it would be a fun time. I wasn't meant to be anything more than that. I just want to give back. Do you think there's other ways to give back than to teach little children to dress in drag? I think there's many ways to give back, but maybe just read dressed as a regular person so that we're not trying to teach kids about these weird things. I don't know. That's just a question. I'd like to see everyone come together and says this event is going to happen, says Moore. And if people are going to disrupt it in any way, there will be consequences with the law. I mean, how different would it be if there was an Indigenous or Black event and people said, oh, we don't want that here? Those voices wouldn't even be heard at all. So why are we hearing these voices now? You're comparing racism to actual sexualizing of children? Some people are confused here. I'm not going to read any more here. So now let's head down to the protest and check out this interview I did with Jason.
Hey,
I'm Patrick, by the way.
Hey, Patrick. Jason.
Nice to meet you, Jason.
I run the Cookie Pride Community Forum. And basically what I'd say is our police took a chicken shit response. I'm not going to mince words. They decided to basically leave the scene when the library was reporting that there's a month's worth of harassment and intimidation, threats against the staff, threats against the performers, who are just readers, really. I mean, they're reading to kids. And we're talking about
There's like actual violent threats?
Yes, there are violent threats from people who are in Facebook groups from Salmo, Castlegar, and around the area, and making threats to, and they shut it down, the library, and said, the police said they couldn't protect the community. So they said they couldn't have their reading. So then Sid Black from the Nelson Arts Council called up Berkeley and said, hey Burke, why don't you just do the performance down in public at the City Hall? We'll support you. And so it turned out that the police had to end up doing their job anyway. They didn't want to come out and protect the LGBT community. Well, they ended up having to do it anyway. And I think that's just really, really awesome. Thank you, Nelson.
And why would they be violent threats? Do you know why that would be?
Well, the idea is that gay people are somehow obviously inherently dangerous towards children. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what you tell me? Why would there be threats against drag story time? Really, honestly, it's just
I try to be as balanced as I say. I think a lot of people could be just very ignorant about what's really going on. Because I think even in here,
it's a human rights issue. I've got to say this. We had a bunch of kids who were supposed to show up at the library, have a very innocent time, listen to some people who are good at character voices and just want to have human interaction. And it's just a thing where, here at Nelson we've done post-traumatic story times before.
Yeah.
Never an issue. Never an issue. This isn't an issue inside of our actual community. This is an issue for a very few people. They're making it an issue, and they're trying to use the Protect the Kids thing as a wedge to actually bring up their basically hateful.
I wonder sometimes when people hear the word drag, they inherently just feel like that might be something connected to something sexual. Is that
perhaps? But think about it this way: that a person who does drag and performs drag on stage in a bar is going to do a particular performance, right? But a person who is also trans is dressed in drag, right? Or a person who dresses in drag just because they like to wear feminine clothes, because they might feel like it's just more appropriate for them to wear something that's a little bit feminine. Where is the line? What's the line? Drag literally means dressed as.
I think probably if it was actually sexual stuff going on, it would be the line, I guess. So I mean, if it's just people doing what you're saying, then I think that people are overreacting. But if there is instances, even not all of them, if there's instances where it could go into that realm, then maybe some people have seen that.
This is Albert Garza, a registered child sex offender, convicted in 2008 for molesting an 8-year-old boy. This is also him, Tatiana Malanina, his drag queen alter ego. This is who's been reading to kids at Houston Public Libraries since last year.
What you might see is a lot of propaganda online from the United States.
Oh, okay.
I think that it's affecting people for sure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff being posted on Facebook that is simply not true. I mean, look, it's the Nelson Public Library underneath the police station. Do you think they're going to be doing anything inappropriate with children in the Nelson Public Library underneath the police station?
Yeah, and if
think
and the propaganda
it's coming from a place where they fear. And why are they fearing? Because hey, I was raised in Baptist church in Salmo. I really do understand why they're here. One of their favorite little sayings is, get them by 6, you got them for life.
They're using children, little 5-year-olds, to accomplish this, and parents are waking up and saying no.
So if you're thinking like that, you're thinking the gay people are thinking like that. But the truth is, the gay people are simply living our lives. I'm a dad. I'm also a BC teacher. We're living our lives. If I'm a drag queen one day on stage, and a dad the next day, and reading stories to kids the next, teaching your children. I teach art. I also do engineering.
Does your
we're multifaceted people. We are not just a drag queen.
And yeah, I mean, I think that people, whenever we try to put somebody in a box all together or making a mistake, people are very complex. I have a question for you about, so in class, like, is this something that, because I'd imagine there's environmental effects that we are balanced between genetics and environment. Like, there's environmental things that could cause people to go in directions. That is there any chances that there could be any?
Could be social. Could I change you to be gay right now? Could I make you gay?
I assume not.
Can I make you gay?
No, I'm talking about no.
I'd really like to try. Hey,
yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, do you think that?
Well, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, the argument is dead.
That there's no environmental factors.
Well, I mean, there's nothing I could do to convince children to be gay who aren't gay. That's ridiculous.
No. I mean, I have nothing wrong with if people are going to be gay. That's fine. I'm just asking. Do you think
exposing the children to a person who is gay does somehow make them gay? Is that what you're?
Not unless they're talking about sexual things.
Well,
again, to come back.
The question better. What exactly are you insinuating?
Well, I think that some people may have seen this propaganda from the States. It could be propaganda, could be actual situations where they've seen people openly talking about sex in front of very young children, maybe probably even before their parents are even talking about that. Do you think in those situations that's good for the child?
Do you think that in church when they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah to 6-year-olds, that's good for the children?
I asked the question first.
I'm asking the same question.
Well, I mean, people interpret stories differently. And
well, I think you need to understand that that's exactly what happened to me in Salmo Baptist Church. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to understand that some of the people who are bringing up this hateful stuff are bringing it up from a place where that's the kind of mentality that they're coming from. So what it really is a reflection on them. It isn't anything to do with what's going on inside the library in Nelson when they're doing a drag story time, which is basically like Mrs. Doubtfire. Okay, come on.
So a lot of people believe, though, that there is environmental factors that will change a person towards pathological things in general. And I'm not saying that that's...
You think being gay is
pathological? No, what I'm saying, in general...
Stop this conversation.
I didn't say that. I said, all right.
Whenever you see somebody just get overly emotional and disconnect from the conversation or the actual words that are being said, a lot of the reason for that is the fact that their argument isn't built in stone. They don't have much truth to their argument. So to me, when I see an interview end like this, it's also it is a win for the children. So now let's check out what cbnnews.com said about SOGI, which is a program to indoctrinate children here in Canada and has been here since 2016. Let's have a listen.
A family can be made up in many different ways.
It's called SOGI, for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identification, a curriculum that teaches public school students across Canada to celebrate the homosexual lifestyle and that gender is fluid. In other words, your gender is not dependent on what parts you were born with, but rather what you feel like in the moment.
There's people that are boys, there's people that are girls, there are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither.
Lessons include books about transgender children, such as 10,000 Dresses, and songs like The Rainbow Song.
Gender won't decide the choices we make. Some boys like dressing up, some girls like catching snakes.
The SOGI curriculum started in British Columbia in 2016 and is quickly spreading throughout Canada.
We are seeing the results of that now because some kids are reacting very emotionally and saying, and they're in fear. Will I suddenly struggle with feeling like a different gender inside of my body?
Carrie Simpson of Culture Guard, another leading opponent, calls the curriculum nothing short of child abuse.
All those beautiful qualities that make young girls, beautiful girls and women, are being basically vilified. The things that make our boys boys are being, taken from them. So things of equating young men to being strong protectors is something that's now evil. Altering our culture from a heteronormative society into one where anything goes, no boundaries, no values, no morals. It's a hedonistic cult, basically, what they're implying.
Another blaring example, drag queen story time. It's happening in Canada and America, where some public schools and libraries invite drag queens, some dressed like horned demons, to read to young children.
They're using children, little 5-year-olds, to accomplish this, and parents are waking up and saying no.
When asked about parents' rights, Auger says,
well, actually, in Canada, parents' rights are limited and children's rights are put ahead. So the child has the right to be protected from the parents when the parents behave badly.
When the parents behave badly. This is a scary time to be here in Canada, especially if you have children. If you have children and they're in these public schools, man, I just pray that you have the abilities to pull them out of there. We need to build things better for our new society. And that's what a lot of what Awaken World News stands for, is going after our education system and reforming it so that we can have children that rise up to be the beautiful, awesome person that they are meant to be, rather than what they want to make children into. It's a travesty that these kind of things are happening to children. And the fact that people can be so ignorant, it shows me that they have to avoid all these truths, or else they would realize the dark things that they are doing. Let's see what else we got here.
The change that we have to see is sometimes the parents. And the kids are doing actually really okay.
And the little girl came home in tears because the teacher had told her, since she was playing with some toys in the class that were deemed to be masculine in nature, that she was likely a boy in a girl's body. The mother went to the school the very next day, and instead of having any sort of tolerance or support or understanding, she was actually called names. She was told that she was a homophobe, that she was a bigot.
And this is what we have to be ready for, is people are going to call you all these names in the book. But remember, these people are just fractals of that house of cards that's falling down. So just stand strong behind your truth, and we will always stand to protect the children peacefully, without any violence, just with our words and with our truth. And their lies will send them running away, as you saw in this interview. What kind of world are we living in when lesbian groups are being banned from feminine-only spaces in bid to include men who identify as women? What kind of world do we live in where Toronto Raptors apologize for saying only women can procreate? What kind of world do we live in that autogynephilic men can go out and get their thrills in front of kids and people think this is okay? What kind of country do we live in where our prime minister gives federal employees a $75,000 benefit for a sex change? Wow, our tax money is going to great things now, aren't they? Well, we know what's going on. We'll always keep an eye on the ball, and we will not let Satan win this battle. We got all the light workers on our side. Our society is going to be powerful because we have the awakened people on our side. So stay strong out there. Keep an eye on the demons and pray to catch the bus, but run also. I love you and God bless.